5.84 billion. That's the number they're projecting for podcast listeners next year.
Wow.
Yeah, just let that sink in. It's huge globally. And it really got me thinking about, well, something a lot of us struggle with, learning a new language, my own journey. Let's just say it's been ongoing. Educational, maybe?
Relatable.
Which is exactly why this document we found, 0011 AJTU, really caught our eye. So today we're diving deep into using podcasts for learning English, trying to make it super relevant for you, the learner.
Exactly. And it's not just about how popular podcasts are, is it? It's more about this fundamental shift in how people are actually learning languages now.
Right.
Our goal here is really to pull out the most valuable stuff from this document, give you a clear idea, a pathway even, for how you can use podcasts to seriously boost your English.
Kind of like a shortcut, skipping the jargon.
Pretty much a shortcut to understanding how powerful audio learning can be.
Okay, so what's the structure here? This source seems to cover a lot. It looks at how podcasts became a thing for language learning.
Yeah, their history, basically.
The big advantages, how they're used around the world, who's actually listening.
The typical learner profile, yeah.
And crucially, do they actually work? Are they effective?
Right, the results. And it also touches on the challenges, which is important.
Oh, yeah, got to be realistic. And then recommendations, specific podcasts to check out.
Exactly. So we're trying to break it all down, do the heavy lifting so you avoid feeling overwhelmed, and just get those useful takeaways, those aha moments.
Our mission, then, is pretty straightforward. Give you actionable insights.
Yep. We want you walking away knowing how podcasts work for learning, not just that they can help, and feeling ready to actually, try them out.
Okay, let's kick things off then. The podcast revolution itself. It's funny, you forget they weren't always this big thing.
The document points out they started more like audio blogs, really basic.
Yeah. And what really lit the fire was smartphones and streaming tech becoming so easy to use, that just made them explode.
Totally. It suddenly put audio creation and listening into, well, everyone's hands. Access just opened right up.
Democratized it, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And the document highlights how educational groups, language platforms, they saw this potential pretty quickly.
Like Duolingo, the BBC.
Right. They started launching their own language learning podcasts, catering to all levels, from total beginners right up to advanced.
That really shows it moved beyond just a niche thing, didn't it? It got serious validation.
Definitely. Which brings us nicely to why they're such a game changer for learning English. The advantages.
Okay, yeah. The document lists a few key ones. First up, flexibility and convenience. Seems obvious, but it's actually massive.
It really is. The ability to learn anytime, anywhere.
Commuting, doing chores, just chilling at home.
Exactly. It slots into your existing life no matter how busy you are. You're turning that downtime into learning time.
Which breaks down those old barriers, right? Like needing to be in a classroom at a specific time.
Precisely. Podcasts just remove those constraints.
Yeah.
And that means way more potential exposure time to the language, which we know is absolutely fundamental.
Right. And speaking of exposure, that leads to the next big point, boosting listening comprehension.
Yes. This is huge.
You're hearing so many different accents, natural speeds, the way people actually talk.
Not just those stilted textbook dialogue.
Exactly. It's training your ear for real life. The document stresses the variety of accents and speaking styles.
Yeah, because real English isn't one standard voice from a recording, is it?
Not at all.
So tuning in regularly trains your brain to process a much wider range of English. It makes you better at understanding and reacting in actual conversations. The source even mentions research backing this up. Regular listening makes a real difference.
And it's not just understanding the sounds, is it? It's about soaking up new words, getting that feel for the language, as the document calls it.
That intuition.
You hear words and phrases used in real situations, which makes them stick there. And you start to get how to use them yourself, naturally.
That context is everything. Learning vocabulary from a list, it often lacks that crucial how to use it part.
Totally.
Podcasts give you that context. You infer meaning, you pick up nuances, and eventually you develop a more intuitive grasp of English. It's learning the language in motion.
Exactly. Okay, and another big one. Motivation, let's be honest.
Uh-oh.
Sometimes traditional learning can feel a bit like, well, homework, a chore.
Yeah, it definitely can.
But podcasts, especially if you find topics you actually like, they can be way more engaging. more practical, maybe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That engagement factor is crucial. If it feels like a drag, you're just not going to stick with it.
Especially for adult learners, right? We're often doing this on our own steam.
Exactly. Podcasts tap into your interests, make it more enjoyable, and therefore more sustainable, especially for self-directed learners.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit. The global picture.
Mm.
How widespread is this podcast for learning thing?
Well, according to the source, it's pretty significant, especially in developed countries. It mentions the U.S., for instance.
Yeah, that Edison research stat was interesting. Over half of Americans listening monthly, and a chunk of those are using it for language learning.
Right. It shows how integrated podcasts are into daily life there. They're not some weird niche thing. They're just part of the media landscape. Makes it
Right.
easier for learners to adopt them.
And it's not just the US or the West. The document points to Asia, too, places like China, Japan, South Korea.
Mm-hmm. Growing adoption there as well.
The idea of people using their commute time to listen to English podcasts, that really highlights the flexibility again.
It does. It's that global trend of using dead time for self-improvement. Smartphones make it so easy wherever you are.
So who is the typical learner using podcasts? This is where it gets interesting because, well, it might sound a lot like our listeners.
Yeah, the profile it paints is quite specific, though broad in some ways.
Wide age range, but mostly 18 to 35.
Primarily, yeah. Often with higher education, good self-study habits.
Comfortable with tech, obviously.
Definitely. And their reasons are varied. Studying abroad, work, just personal interest.
Does that ring a bell for anyone listening? It feels quite relatable.
I think so. The key is that they're active learners, proactive in finding resources, and happy using tech to do it. The different goals just show how adaptable podcasts are.
Okay, so they're popular, convenient, lots of people are using them. But the million-dollar question, do they actually work? Are they effective?
Right.
Yeah.
The bottom line. And the document seems pretty clear on this, yes. Research apparently shows real improvements in listening, comprehension, vocabulary, that language feel we talked about.
It mentioned a systemic radio study, finding they boost motivation and skills.
Yeah, that's pretty compelling. It's not just anecdotal. There's evidence of tangible benefits.
Oh.
And the motivation boost is key because, like we said, that drives everything.
And compared to, say, a traditional class, the document suggests podcasts can be more efficient.
Well, in the sense that you control the pace. You can rewind, listen again, focus on what you find hard. It's personalized.
Puts the learner in the driver's seat.
Exactly. It's very learner-centric. You tailor it to your needs, your style, not just follow a fixed syllabus.
But it also makes a really good point. Podcasts don't have to be your only tool.
Oh, absolutely not. They work best when integrated.
Yeah, combine them with textbooks, speaking practice, writing, build a whole system.
Think of them as a powerful supplement. They enrich and reinforce what you learn elsewhere. Combining methods usually leads to more well-rounded skills.
Makes sense. Okay, but let's get real. It can't be perfect. There must be challenges.
For sure. The document acknowledges hurdles. One big one, especially for beginners, is just feeling overwhelmed. Native speaker speed can be tough at first.
Yeah, I can imagine just getting lost.
Definitely. But the suggested solution is practical. Start with podcasts made for learners. Slower pace, simpler language.
Like easing yourself in.
Exactly. Build up gradually. You wouldn't just jump into advanced physics, right?
Yeah, fair point. What else? The lack of direct interaction. That's a big one. You're just listening.
True. You can't ask questions in the moment. But the document suggests workarounds.
Like online communities, forums, comment sections.
Yeah, engaging in discussions, connecting with other learners on social media. It's about creating that interaction around the podcast.
Building a support network.
It injects that interactive element that might be missing from just listening alone.
Okay, and the final challenge. There are just so many podcasts. Where do you even start? It's overwhelming.
Choice paralysis. Yeah, it's real.
Yeah.
The advice here is pretty logical, though. Choose based on your interests and your learning goals.
So don't just randomly pick.
Right. Focus on topics you actually care about. Look for shows that are well-regarded or recommended. Quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Be strategic.
Got it. Okay, now for the fun part, recommendations. The source lists some specific examples.
Yeah, some popular ones.
First is The English We Speak from the BBC. Sounds like it focuses on everyday phrases, idioms. Good for intermediate folks wanting to sound more natural.
Yeah, that's a great one for those common expressions you don't always find in textbooks. And BBC quality is usually reliable.
Then there's English Class 101. This one sounds really comprehensive, beginner to advanced, lots of tools.
Right. That one's good if you like a structured step-by-step approach. Covers a lot of ground.
Coffee Break English is next. The name kind of gives it away, short episodes like 15, 20 minutes.
Perfect for squeezing into a busy day. Bite-sized learning makes it easy to be consistent without feeling like a huge time sink.
Nice. And for listening skills specifically, news in slow English.
Self-explanatory, that one.
Yeah. News, but slower. Sounds super helpful for catching details and just building confidence with real-world topics like training wheels for the news.
Exactly. It bridges the gap between learner materials and authentic, fast-paced news.
And finally, the Fluent Show. This one sounds a bit different, more about language learning itself. Tips, experiences.
Yeah, it's more meta, you could say. Insights into how to learn effectively, hearing from other learners, can be really motivating, gives you that sense of community.
Cool. So wrapping things up, it seems pretty clear podcasts pack a punch for English learners.
Definitely. The convenience, the listening practice, the vocabulary boost, the motivation, it's a powerful mix.
And it's happening everywhere, this global shift.
The core things are that accessibility, the real-world language exposure, and how personal you can make the learning. It's a really positive evolution in how we learn languages.
So the message for you, the learner, is pretty simple then. Give it a go.
Yeah, start exploring.
Check out some of these recommendations or find something else based on what you like. Just pick one or two to start. See how it feels.
And remember the tips.
Yeah.
Start easy. Find ways to interact online. Be selective.
Right. And maybe a final thought to chew on. Given how flexible and varied podcasts are, and with tech always improving, how could really integrating them into your routine change your whole learning journey? What new doors might that open up for you down the line?
That's a great question to reflect on. The potential is definitely there.